What's up, everybody? This is my Shure SM7B, and I literally just got this microphone, and I was comparing it to my last microphone, which is an MXL RE20, and I gotta tell you, it's really hard to determine which microphone sounds the best, but that's not what this video is about. This video, I want to talk to you guys about the settings I've implemented on my Rodecaster 2 to get the sound that I have inside of the Shure SM7B. So, if you're interested, let's hang out. One thing to note before we get into this is that my settings might be different from the settings that you need. My environment might not be the same as your environment. To give you an example, I have followed a couple of guys' videos on YouTube, and their mics sound amazing, but when I tried to replicate it, it sounded absolutely terrible. Now that I think about it, this might not be the best way to pitch you to watch my video to tell you that I tried others and it was terrible. Back to environment for 1 second. So this is my garage. It looks sweet, right? But it's got a concrete floor. It's got a cinder block exterior wall. The wall on this side is drywall. Multiple hard surface desks. Multiple hard surface desk. Sound like I said service desk. Anyways, flat screens, TV, there's not a whole lot of sound treatment, basically, is what I'm saying. So, I don't know, dude. I swear to God, the more this video progresses, I'm just like, I wouldn't even watch this. Let's take a look at those settings. My microphone is coming in on track 1. So, we're going to tap the pad at the top of the slider to open up the processing panel. And you will see that I'm using the profile Shure SM7B that's already been provided by Rode, which is pretty cool. And I've got my preamp gain set to 76 dB. Now, that might seem kind of extreme to some people, but my theory is this. I would rather you click your phone volume down a couple times and it sound awesome than to click it all the way up and wish you could click it a couple more. Again, one of the other things is you want to make sure that your signal's hot enough that you can actually get past the thresholds in your processor. I do have a couple effects running, actually just one. I've got reverb going here, and it's just a little bit. You can tell by the level right there, it's a small amount of reverb, but my theory on that is, it seems as if you add a little reverb, your voice becomes more full. It's not enough reverb for the end user to actually tell that you're using the effect, but it's enough that your voice has a manipulation to it, if that makes any sense. Going back to the processor, I don't use presets. That's for people that are scared to move dials. But if you use a preset and it sounds great, awesome. The first part of the processor is the high pass filter. Now, you can use this if you want. Personally, I don't. I like full bottom end. I like the thickness. I like the warmth. I like the sound of having a substantial amount of bass in the mix. So if you don't like bass, then you can just use this. You can turn this up this way. We'll see what it sounds like. So that's all the way up. And I would imagine a good portion of the bottom end has already been removed. Turn it off. This is what it would sound like with it off. Turn it on. This is what it would sound like with it on. But I don't like it, no bueno. Now let's move on to the next setting here. All right, we got de-esser up next. Now, de-esser is for plosives. And if you guys don't know what plosives are, it's the S. See it pull it down? So it's trying to remove that frequency that the S sounds make or plosives make, right? And you got to be weary of how you set these things up. You'll have to play with it. You'll have to pre-record it, play it back, record, playback, tweak, tweak, tweak. I'm a tweaker, baby. I tweak hard AF. You know what I mean? I get in here and start moving dials for no reason because it already sounded okay. But anyway, my threshold is set to negative 30.6 dB, and that's basically what's telling it how much to pull down of the S sound. We're just going to speak layman terms, okay? My ratio, which is what creates the wideness, picture it as like a cone. So the more you add to your ratio, the wider the cone gets of that area because everything's frequency, right? So my ratio is 431. My attack is 0.24 milliseconds. My release is 112.2 milliseconds. And my gain is 2.4 dB. The frequency is just under 7,000 hertz. Now, the hertz, the frequency, and the cone, the ratio, are what work together. So let's say if I'm around 7,000 hertz, but I want it to expand a little further, then I want more ratio, if that makes sense. You got to play with it yourself, find your own settings, but maybe I can give you a guide that will dial you in and possibly work for you. And if so, great. All right, we're moving on to noise gate now. So the noise gate is really important. Let me turn it off so you can see what it really sounds like in this room. I imagine you hear the fans running, the computer fans, the oscillating fan. All the ambient sounds in this room just came to life. So it's important that you have some type of noise gate running. Now, my threshold might be higher than what you need your threshold to be. And that's because of my environment. You might be in a situation where you use a quarter of what I'm showing on the threshold. You have carpet, smaller room, whatever the situation is. I've seen people that definitely have a less threshold than I do. But my threshold for my environment is set to 25.8 dB on the negative side. My attack time is set to 3.31 milliseconds. My hold is 75 milliseconds. My release is 93.6 milliseconds. And my range is set to 32 dB. Now, the range is pretty much the same thing. If you go all the way to the right, fans come back into it. You hear the computer fans. You hear everything you heard before when I turned it off, all of a sudden enters back, right? Now, if you turn it all the way the other way, the second I stop talking, silence. I was just watching the meter. The meter sets to 0. You hear nothing. However, I like to leave mine up just a hair. I like to go around 36, 38, somewhere in there. Hystereus is kind of like a fine tune button where you set your threshold is the place where you want to be able to cut all the external noise out and pick up the voice. And sometimes it might glitch and like try to chop you out, like the gate wants to close. So you take the Hystereus button as a fine tune and you can lower that a hair and kind of finesse how that gate opens and closes. Now let's go to compressor. Compressor's awesome, right? Compressor can take a cheap microphone and actually make it sound like a broadcast microphone. Compressor is what actually makes microphones have the broadcast sound. The less you go one way, the more you go one way, you can actually destroy what you're trying to accomplish. And I'll give you a rundown of how this works, right? So my threshold is currently set to negative 23.4 dB. And if we actually go all the way to the left, you'll see that my volume, I can see from my peak meter over here, my volume's dropping a lot. And it's dropping down. Actually, it picked back up. Now it's trying to clip. Oh, wait, there we go. We don't want to set it to 0. So obviously that's a lot. Let's get back over here. What did I say? 24.1, something like that. I don't know. We'll leave it around 23. 23 will probably be ideal. Same thing with the ratio. Picture a cone. So the less ratio, the more pinpoint precise you're trying to cover in this area. A lot of people are going to use a 331 or a 441, right? And you can probably tell a difference. I'm not really sure. But if we turn the compressor off completely, then let's see what we get on sound. Now I'm just showing clip, clip, clip. So basically I need to run the compressor to regulate how much volume, crunch these frequencies so that I have a much better sound. My attack is set to 0.17 milliseconds. The release is set to 9.0 milliseconds. And of course I hit some gain on it to give it some crunch. And that is 4.1 dB. You know what I just noticed? I left the compressor set on 441 for ratio. This is why I tell you guys, make sure you record playback, because I was just watching the clip of me talking about the compressor and I was like, why did the sound change like that? And it's because I didn't set it back to 331. Now I got it. So we're ready to roll on. Anyway, make sure you sub the channel. Next up, we're moving into the equalizer, which is really something you're going to have to set to your own taste. So I'm going to breeze through this real quick. The high bell, I keep it like 9,500. We'll just round that up, right? A lot of people are going to move between 8,000 to 10,000 hertz. My gain is set to 3.6 dB. I am not a mid person. I actually don't like mids. A lot of people tend to turn up their mids way too high. And I think mids sound terrible. You can see my bell, for those of you that know frequency and stuff, my bell's set way out there. A lot of people are going to have the mid bell set at like 100, maybe 200, somewhere in there. My mid bell is like 937.3 hertz, and I've turned it down to negative 0.5 dB. Now, I do like low end, and a lot of people hang out between 90 to 100 hertz in the low end. My bell is set to 105.7 hertz, and my gain is set to 2.2 dB. Next up, we're going to move on to the exciter. So that is exactly what it sounds like. It is to excite the overall tones and sound. You have big bottom, and that's exactly what we like, right? Well, that's what I like. Big bottom girls make the world go round. So I've got the tune set to 225.3 hertz. I've got the drive set up. The drive is basically like a gain, right? So we can turn the drive way down. I'm not sure if it's going to make a difference, but we'll see. I'll check it out on playback. So right now you see the wave format totally dropped out. I like I said, I juice mine, dude. I keep it around 94, 93, somewhere in there, give or take. And then of course the other side of this is the exciter. So that's going to be on your higher side for, brightness, to open up the dynamic. And my tune is set to 3075 hertz. And the harmonics is set to 78%. Actually, I had just a little hair higher. And let's just drop that all the way out just for testing, right? So we've dropped that all the way out. And this is what it sounds like when the harmonics are dropped to 0. This is what it sounds like when the harmonics picks back up to, say, 90. And it was like 80, we'll say 80%, right? And again, wherever you feel that it dials into the sweet spot. You got to hit your sweet spot, baby. That brings us back to panning, which I believe is pretty much it now. That's how I set up my Rodecaster Pro 2. Now, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, whether it sounds good to you, whether it sounds like doo-doo, that's all objective. You know what I mean? There's people that have settings that promote that their settings are the best, and I see their YouTube videos, and like I said, I've tried to replicate their settings, and it sounds terrible to me, but their mics sound phenomenal. My mic kind of dials in, at least by ear, to some of these other guys, but my settings are way different. Different strokes for different folks, babe. But hey, don't be scared to get in there and play. Just don't get lost in it, because that can happen too. But anyway, that's how I set it up, man. I'll see you guys next time. Be sure to sub the channel and all that good stuff that I'm supposed to say. And see you on the next one. You guys take care.